everybody out there, you're tuned in to 91.8 The Fan. You're in my corner, and I have a returning guest in the corner. Would you like to unveil your secret identity?
Sure thing. It's Erin Fitzgerald. What? Yes, it is.
I like how you had an entourage in the back.
Yeah, I
What?
introduced myself like it was multiple people. Yeah.
Perfect. Now I just imagine you walking around and
That is how I do it. That's where you keep that confidence high when you start introducing yourself. You're your own hype man. That's the way I work.
That's oh my God, that's great. The mental image is so good. But it's nice to get a chance to talk with you again. I know the fans.
I know it's been a while. I feel like I've watched you grow and your show grow tremendously. I keep tabs, of course, because I really enjoyed my time with you the last time. But I'm so impressed with what you guys have done and how much you have grown since the last time we spoke. So well done, you. A round of applause, everybody, for Jackie. Round of applause. Very good. Very good.
Oh, it's just my little heart's just like doki doki. But no, it's cool that you've been keeping tabs because I have referenced the previous interview we did with America Young so many times.
How great is she?
She's amazing. But
I know.
But that interview was so good because we had a long discussion about, females and video game media and things like that. And I have used that so much in game developer interviews, so on and so forth, because it was so
relevant. It's just
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was so refreshing to see that stance from a voice acting perspective.
Right.
Because there are some voice actors that never want to comment on that sort of thing because they're scared and the internet can be scary, but I always appreciated that as a female gamer myself.
No, for sure. And I feel like if for those of us who feel confident enough speaking up, I mean, how else are we going to change things if we don't talk about it and encourage the young women that are stepping up today? We're in the beginning of a major shift and transition towards really celebrating women in games, women producing games, women creating games, writing, directing, programming, artists, all of it. If there aren't people there to encourage it, it becomes like, well, it doesn't seem like anybody wants it, when it's not true. Like, I am dying to be working with tons more women in the gaming industry. I want way more women because it's not going to take away the men's jobs. They're always going to have more than enough room for all the men, but we need to create a stronger niche for females, period.
I totally agree with you. I mean, the big conversation there, I guess this is a part 2, if you will. I like to watch games and I like to see guys do their thing and I like to see sexy butts and it's great to see some sexy boobs, and I don't even swing that way, but I'm good for
it's nice to be able to appreciate all the aesthetics and beauty in all their forms. Like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. It can be all inclusive. It doesn't have to be exclusive. And I think that's where we're heading towards more, where there's actually more than enough for everybody. And if we just open it up to being less objectifying and more like acknowledging the badassedness. I don't know if that's, you're going to have to bleep that. I don't know the word. Bad buttedness doesn't sound as good. But because I think sexy is great if it's used appropriately. You know what I mean? Where it's not just for sexy's sake. It's sexy because it just happens to be that the chick character is so amazing. She doesn't use her sexuality to get ahead. She's just happens to be amazing. I mean, you know women like that. They're not trying to be sexy. They're just sexy because of how confident and strong and motivated and inspirational they are.
Oh yeah, exactly. And they can still be cute and innocent or polite or whatever.
Many different versions of that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. So I've referenced that. I've actually gotten a chance to talk with a lot more game developers this year, and it's been so nice to, see them kind of embrace different shapes, different sizes, different whatever, and still be surprised that there are people on the voice side who are like, yes, give us more. We want that. Like, we'll stick up for our character kind of thing.
Yes.
that was something that I really wanted to address, and I wanted to thank you because that interview previously, and America Young, wherever you are.
Yeah, awesome.
But
Happy to. Thank you.
yeah, no, I always thought that was something that was really, really great to talk about. But another thing that's super great to talk about that I want to reference because I just binge watched a bunch of it was Ever After High.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks.
Well, I really like I actually got Netflix again because I'm a Hulu kid. So I got Netflix
Okay.
again specifically to watch it.
Wow.
Because
It
I'm like the
matters.
new episodes aren't available on the YouTubes.
Right, right, right.
On the official YouTubes before anybody's like, why are you pirating on YouTube? No, the
Right, right,
official
right, right.
the official YouTube. Yeah, no, the I watched the season with Courtly Jester, and I really loved that we actually had a glimpse of Raven getting her powers.
Yes.
That
It
was
was
intense.
amazing. Yeah, it was amazing. The whole thing was I was really proud of that work. A lot got cut out that I was super disappointed about. Um there was some really gorgeous writing for Raven that and like there was acting stuff where like the writing was so good it had me in tears when I was performing it, and some of that got left on the cutting room floor because I guess it just didn't match the pacing or the you know there's just so many those episodes. The episodes are getting much faster, and the cuts are so much faster that the character development that the writers intended for Raven and just didn't fit with the high fast let's get to the next character, next character, next character, and that was a little disappointing to me because it was some of the best work I have ever done, but no one will ever get to see it except for me and the people who were in the room that day. But we know we were there, we saw it, and I remember doing it, and it felt really honest. And for an actor, just to get to feel like you just delivered something so honest and so real is amazing.
Yeah, no, one of the things that I found particularly interesting with watching that season, I'm not sure if the Dragon games are out yet. I've
I
been
think they
waiting.
are. Yeah,
Okay.
it's out. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been waiting for them all to come out so I can binge watch the next season instead of
Oh,
waiting.
nice.
Because that's I feel like that's easier to digest that show, like just
Yeah.
the
Oh,
entire
but
journey.
I'm a binge watcher for everything now. I'm like, I can't watch more than 8 episodes at one time. I'm not interested. Definitely.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right for me too.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, at the end of that season with Courtly Jester and all that, where she takes her mom's powers,
Mm-hmm.
spoilers.
Yep. Spoiler, spoiler,
Yeah.
spoiler.
Well, the one thing that was really interesting to me is they finally showed some like fighting, like some action, and I was like, "Oh
Yeah.
yes, yes!" And I just wish the scene was a little bit longer. I
It
was,
was originally like there's an entire dialogue that Raven had with Courtly, and when I watched it, the dialogue is actually Apple narrating what Raven was experiencing with Courtly, and I'm like, what happened to all of Raven's dialogue? But I guess because of timing, they needed to cut something, and because Raven is, of course, in the battle, it seems silly to narrate her own battle, so.
mm,
I'm guessing that's what happened there, but there was like it was really deep, originally. But like any feature film, for time and for a story, that things get cut, things always get cut. That's normal.
interesting. No, I think it's just interesting that
I
I
would love
picked
a
that up.
director's cut of it, but I'm sure that doesn't happen in animation yet.
No, not quite. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, I was super excited to finally see like some oh man, people might get hurt. Like she looks like Courtly Jester looks worried. Like this is
Right?
great. Because they always talk about Raven having these powers or being born of the evil queen, and she never really uses them for like protecting anything or fighting for anything until really that point, and that's super exciting as a fan of the
Yeah,
show.
I agree. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm excited to see what comes up in the next season.
Yeah.
And
It's gonna be some juicy stuff. Let me tell you, that's all I'm gonna say. It's so juicy. It's so good. It's satisfying. I'm gonna say for me as the actor, it was satisfying, and I'm really impressed with the producer director Audu Payton, who did all of the overseeing of all the way to Dragon's games, and he just did such a brilliant job, and everybody involved was so fantastic. I'm just really grateful to have been a part of it.
So, interesting note. I heard from another person who will remain nameless because I don't want to get them in trouble. But they told me that that director is very precise and will ask you to do a line over and over again until it's just right.
I have a different experience with him on Ever After High. He reads me in because we don't get to work with the other actors in the room. So he plays all the other characters and he reads me in and he just lets me get into my character and perform the scene alongside with him, and that works really really well for us. So that's how we work for Ever After High. But I do know what they're speaking of. I remember there being some of that for Monster High, but then he shifted his style with me, and we got a little bit more organic with it. And so yeah, every director is different, and every actor is different, and it depends on that relationship and what's going on in the room and how the director feels he'll get the best performance for an individual.
Well, obviously, I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble. And for
No.
for anybody out there that's like, man, that director making them do the line over and over until it's just right. That sounds
Hey,
like a lot
hey,
of work.
Danny
That's a good
Antonucci
thing.
made us do that for Ed, Ed and Eddie. Like Danny Antonucci had a very specific sound he wanted in his head, and he would ride an actor for as long as it took until they got the take that he wanted. That's just, that's how some people do. It is what it is.
Yeah, and
It's part of our job.
yeah, definitely. And I think it's actually a good exercise for an actor too, because, you know,
Learn patience and humility very quickly.
yes. And you also might approach something differently than some way you never would have thought of, and something else just comes out.
Or it might be completely the opposite of what you organically think you should do as an actor, and you have to do what the person's telling you. Like there's been many times where I'm given a direction and it goes against every aspect of my being as a creative being for that character. I'm like, that is not the direction of this character. But guess what? I didn't create the show and the character, and I don't get to make that decision unless a director or a producer or creator allows me to. So I have to do what they tell me to do. And sometimes I even see it on the internet later, like with some games and stuff where people are, well, why did you deliver it this way? I'm like, because I was told to. You realize I don't have that much creative freedom unless it happens to be a project that allows for that kind of creative freedom, which isn't often because most of the time the projects are on a huge deadline. They need to hurry up and get it moving. And I don't know what the other characters have performed or how they've performed. I have to trust the director for the timing and the pacing of the series, of the game, and that they know what they want. So when fans give actors flack for that, I'm always like, well, you have no idea how it is for us. You don't have a clue of what it's like to work in this job because we don't get that kind of say.
Oh yeah, I've been riding the internet warrior train a little bit recently for Fire Emblem actually, because there's been a lot of localization changes, which happens.
Yeah.
I won't comment on that, but one of the actors involved stated how they didn't really get told anything. Like they were only told like the bare minimum, which is pretty
That
common.
happens all the time.
Yeah. And people were like, "What? Somebody doesn't know what they're doing." And then the internet had a field day with it, but it's like, "No, that's usually what happens."
Yeah, because and also you've got to think, let's say again, and I don't know what the situation is with Fire Emblem. I was not involved with that at all.
Right.
I was involved with the first game. So let's just say the company in Japan hired a different company to get it localized. So they went to a completely different studio. The completely different studio didn't get an original cast list from the original game, and they're hiring a director who knows nothing about the original game, who knows nothing. I mean, this is all conjecture. Of course, I don't know what happened with this particular game, but this is how it can go, and it has happened to me on many occasions where I'm on a series of games and the directors are like, maybe there's like 8 games already of this game, and each time there's a new game, there's a brand new director who knows nothing about the world or the canon or anything, who hasn't been told the storyline because the game is being written as we speak. If we're lucky, we get the writer or somebody who's involved in the localization in the room, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So the director's like, I have no idea. I have no information to give you because I have been given no information. And that has to do with, I guess, the parent company ultimately about how much time they're budgeted, because when they're localizing, in a lot of cases, especially for JRPGs, they're trying to figure out ways how to get it done even cheaper than the last time. Well, if you're going to go cheaper, then you're going to lose out on the translation, the localization. You're probably going to go to a studio that you feel is cheaper, which means that studio isn't getting paid enough to fill in a director who's going to take the time to find out all that stuff, because they're not getting paid for that. It all comes down to budget. So if something feels like a crappier version than the original, chances are there were a lot of budget restraints, and studios can only work with the budget that they're given. People aren't going to work for free. The writers, as it is for localization, get paid a pittance. And what they're doing is such an important job, and it's obscene to me how little writers get paid for localizations. It really does break my heart, considering how much hours it takes it's even harder to me, in my opinion, to localize a script than to write it from scratch, because at least you have the freedom of your own creativity in the own universe when you're not localizing it. But when you're localizing it, you're trying to be authentic to the original voice, the original intention, but also making it familiar to the Western world at the same time. That's a lot of pressure, and you're not getting paid anywhere near as much as you would if you were like creating the script, which is crazy. So again, when fans are disappointed, I think it's good to go back to the original company and let them know, like, I'm guessing you guys had budget restraints. What if you actually invested the money you made on the first game and gave permission to the second game to be even bigger and better? Imagine what that would feel like. And in many cases in the Japanese localization universe, that doesn't happen, because, to them, they're just, their main game is the original language. Just like when we make something here, it's the original language, and when we send it overseas to be localized, it's like, well, whatever they do. We only have this much for a budget. But it seems silly, considering Japanese content is so huge over here, and we're such fans. It seems a little disrespectful not to honor that a little bit more, in my opinion, just in my opinion. But then again, I am North American and a little arrogant in that we're the center of the universe, and we should be catered to because we give you a lot of our money. But that's just my opinion.
Well, no, I agree with you too, and it's kind of funny to be in the position I'm in, because oftentimes when I see projects going in a drastically different direction, or if there's a lot of hubbub from the internet or what have you, I'm always trying to look like what the source is, like what happened behind the scenes, and it's like you can't really
90% of the time it has to do with money. And
yes.
I'm going to say 99% of the time. And if they change studios, it's because another studio underbid the original studio. And that whoever is looking for the studio doesn't care about the project as much for the authenticity and the continuity as much as they care about cutting their budget. And that is the reality of this business.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I think that's something that fans need to hear. Like, just because a lot of people don't look at it as a business. I'm the fan. I'm the consumer. Catered to me.
Right.
Well,
and who does that brilliantly? Blizzard. They take their time. They invest the money they make back into the games. They make sure the content is A++ from the writers, the programmers, the producers, the directors, the voice directors, and the talent. Like, there is no better session than going into a Blizzard session, and we are exploring the script. We are getting deep with it. The writers will be Skyped in, the producers, the voice director. Everybody has got the whole picture by the time the actor comes in the room. So they're painting this gorgeous picture for you as an actor, and it's much easier to step into that universe and play and find new things and new qualities. And I can say that, that's Blizzard overall. Like, they've really, back when they started, it was about budget. Like, we got to, they had to do what they had to do to get started. But they really stepped up as they grew as a company and was able to, and now that like the quality of the work, it speaks for itself. I mean, I was there during Burning Crusades, and it was not the same. It was not the same experience as it is when I went in to do Urel. It was a completely different experience because the company had grown and stepped up to value everybody who works for them a little bit more. Now, I also personally, this is my opinion, think that programmers and game designers should be paid a lot more than they do. I know that they work ridiculous hours for the amount of work that they put in. I know Blizzard is a decent company and probably leading the way in that, but I think it can always be better. And I don't mean to call Blizzard out for that, because that's every gaming company across the board, where people are being burnt out and working crazy hours for like just livable wages.
Oh yeah, a lot of it too has to do with the tech bubble in San Francisco and in California in general. For
Right.
example, my roommate, he works for a company and he makes a really good wage. And if he went to go work at, say, PlayStation, even though I am the biggest Sony fangirl you will meet,
Me too,
I'm in a
PlayStation.
PlayStation shirt right now. It's my sleep
Right, right.
shirt.
I'm a
Like,
huge place. I have a PS4, I have a PS Vita, I have a PS3. I got it.
it's like bro fist. But
Yeah, right, right.
fist bump. But yeah, it's I remember him like applying for a job for that company, and they were paying not even half of what he's making now or what he was making at the
Right,
time.
right.
Um, which is insane to me because it's like it's such a recognizable brand, but
Right.
is it worth it to, barely scrape by in San Francisco?
Right.
San Francisco is so costly. Like if
Well,
I
that's it, right? Like both Los Angeles and San Francisco, it seems like a lot of people are like, wow, the fantasy of working in cartoons and video games. I'm like, well, you've got a fantasy. Like, if I lived in your city and worked in cartoons and video games, I'd be rich. But because I live in Los Angeles, I am, making ends meet. That's just the reality and the cost of living. So when we are arguing with unions and trying to figure out contract negotiations, it's not because we live in a town where rent is $300 to $800. It's because we live in a town where rent is $1,500 to $3,000 for, 1 to 2 bedroom, very, very minimalist apartment. That's not a house. We're talking renting an apartment in LA.
yeah. For example, my roommate lived in a one-bedroom apartment that was like $2,800. We
Mhm.
live in a two-story house with three bed, no, technically four if you count the office. Anyway, for like 1,400
Okay, so
in Las
that's
Vegas.
and that is a perfect example.
Yeah.
So the cost of living, and a lot of people, and especially, gamers, they don't necessarily know, because it depends on, if you're living with roommates, it's an easier situation. Easier. I like that I just used easier with living with roommates. If you've ever had roommates, there's nothing easier about living with roommates. It's cohabitating, but financially the burden is a little bit easier. But that can be stress. Like, it comes with its own stresses. I mean, there are people here who are working voiceover who live in houses with from 4 to 8 people just so that they can pursue their passion.
Yeah,
I
and
live just with my man, but some people live doubled up.
yeah, and it's kind of like a little bit terrifying because like this is the stuff that when people go to conventions and they ask that question like how to get into voiceover, this is the stuff they're not thinking about,
No,
right?
not at all. No, and they don't. It's not. I mean, and when the people are arguing online that we already get paid too much money, they're of course comparing it to what they get paid in the city that they live in, with the rents that they pay and the bills that they pay. I mean, don't forget, we have to have cars that are operational, because I'm in my car, 2 to 4 hours every day, going anywhere from 20 to 50 miles a day. So these are things that have to be taken care of on a regular basis in Los Angeles. That's just surviving, let alone the food. And we won't get into that, but yeah.
And then you also have the cost of any at-home equipment you need as well.
Oh my gosh. Yes, of
So,
course. And then of course classes, because you always want to improve your skills and get better. And all of the every class you take costs money. I mean, and if you get headshots or demo reels all of that costs a lot of money. Now, I'm not saying that to be discouraging. Obviously there are more than enough people who are doing it, but I think it's about being smart and being, you got to, as artists, we're most of the time we're terrible with budgeting and money, and it's not taught in school. So it's something you really want to learn: business and money, and how to save your money, how to invest your money, how to have your money make money for you for when those long periods of time when you're not booking, that you can survive and pay your rent and pay your bills, because that is a part of this business. No matter how um how much success you get, you can have an amazing year where you make a ridiculous amount of money, but then the next year people may cool off from you because you were used in every single project last year, and so the next year you have a lull. And that is normal part of the industry, and you want to make sure that you have a steady stream of income to pay your rent and bills. And it doesn't mean you're a failure at what you're doing as an artist. It just means you're in the normal part of the career where there's a normal lull and you need to have other streams of income.
yeah, no, definitely. And I see this is the sort of stuff that I wish was talked about more.
I know.
And me and my roommate, I should clarify, just to give you background information. My roommate and I have been friends for like 14 years. So
Mm.
we've talked about like everything. So often, he's downstairs in his office and I'm doing whatever work up here, and he's a creative type but not in a creative field. So often he asks about it, and we have lengthy discussions about how, for example, when at a convention you have voice actors, who are on the panel, and they give that really sweet, awesome, like you can do it if you do this, and nobody wants to be the bad guy on that panel to be like, there's also some realities though too.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's really misleading, and I think a lot of actors end up really damaged. I've seen it more than enough times where what happens is somebody gets what they feel is their big break when it's really a tiny, tiny little crack, and they give up everything and they move to LA, and they book a job which is terrible paying, but they don't know that because they haven't researched what the union rates are. So they take this job that they think is paying them lots of money when the truth is it's paying them a pittance, and they realize very quickly that they can't live off of that money based on the cost of living in Los Angeles. But they weren't aware of that, and they thought by booking that job they would immediately book all sorts of other work, when the truth is that's not how it works either, when nobody knows you. And then they're kind of trapped with whoever hired them in the first place. And if that company stops hiring them for whatever reason, they don't have anywhere else to go. And with the cost of living, they thought that maybe they would be able, with it's just all these numbers that they didn't calculate on. And so one of the things I really encourage people to do is go to the SAG after SAG, I never remember which order it is, SAG after website, and look up the rates for voiceover. Know what the day rate is for commercials, for promos, for cartoons, for animation, whether it's streaming. Does it get residuals? Does it not get residuals? How much does it take in the union? How much do you have to earn before you qualify for health care? So that if you are starting in the non-union world, you know what it is you want to be working up towards. So if you're taking non-union jobs that pay less than a quarter than a regular union job, you need to be aware of that. You need to be able to know that you need to start negotiating more money for yourself as you get bigger and have a bigger name for yourself, so that you don't end up hurting yourself financially. Because I mean, every contract is negotiable, and yes, if you ask for more money they might go with somebody else. But if you already won out the audition, and you're starting to book more and more, there's a lot of people whose names right now are they're getting requested on these smaller projects, but they're being requested. Those are the people that should be asking for more money. And like, if you were requested, then that's a great opportunity to ask for at least scale union rates. If you're working non-union, the very least they can do even though they choose not to go through the union, the least they can do is at least match the rate you would get paid as a union actor, as opposed to paying you a quarter or, whatever ridiculous low amount that's going on in the non-union world right now. And that way you will build yourself up to feeling worthy of regular union rates, so that when you join the union, you will already feel like you belong. You will already feel ready to be earning regular, normal union rates, which are the rates. The reason that the union rates are what they are is because they take into account the cost of living in Los Angeles. They're not obscene rates. They might be obscene if I lived in a small town in Canada, where I paid $100-$200 in rent. I don't know where that small town might be, but I'm sure there's a small town that does that somewhere.
Oh God, so that cost. I know it was exaggerated cost, but it makes
you
me
know
cry.
but the reason I mention that is because you could book 2 union jobs in a month, and that's it. The union takes in account that actors don't work for long periods of time. So our day rate is a specific rate, so we can pay our bills, so we can cover our expenses, especially, the whole point of residuals is, what if you get sick? What if your mother gets sick and you have to go and take care of her for 6 months? If you're getting paid residuals, you can survive during that 6 months off of the work you did, so that you can take care of your mother and your normal life stuff. But if you don't have residuals, you may not be able to afford to go and take care of your sick mother. Like, these are the things that the actors have fought for decades, and it's well thought out, and it's all done. It has nothing to do with being greedy. It has nothing to do with us being overpaid, because trust, the voiceover world does not get overpaid. Maybe some celebrities in AAA feature films get a really juicy bankroll, but that doesn't happen in the voiceover world. The stuff we're fighting to keep just scale wages in place that are livable and feasible with the current cost of living in Los Angeles, which is constantly going up.
Oh yeah, it definitely is going up. And it's interesting you mentioned this too, because last year everyone was talking about the strike as
Mm-hmm.
well.
Well, and that
Um,
could still happen. We're still in negotiations with the producers.
yeah, that's true. And the internet's immediate reaction. I know I'm clumping the internet into one singular
Right.
person, but was like, well, game developers aren't getting paid enough. Well, they don't have their own union.
And that is and I'm so glad that that conversation came up. That was the most important thing that has come out of this negotiation with the video game producers, is the fact that they don't have any representation. We're just lucky that we negotiate our contracts every few years. Like, we already have a union in place, so that when games showed up, we were like, okay, this is just something new to add to our already current union. But the entire game community isn't a union. They aren't organized, and maybe they don't have to be organized and have a union, but they do need to stand in solidarity with each other and create a base rate. Because I know even in the non-union universe for a while in voiceover, although I heard lately it's all gone to hell in a handbasket, that originally they stood in solidarity for matching rates to the union rates. They're like, you may not be going union, but you're going to pay us the same rates. And that was super decent. And I know that has tanked dramatically in the last few years, because so many people have flooded into the non-union universe. They don't know what the rates are. So the rates have dropped, and they're not livable rates anymore, which is why you want to go union so you can afford to live, that sort of a thing. So the entire gaming community needs to unify in whatever way that they feel safe, so that they can get a decent livable wage, they can get health care, they can get all the things that, let's face it, the actors they've gone on strike for, since the union started, to fight for these things so that we could be taken care of. And if we have to strike for video games to be taken care of for health and safety, we will, because it is about our health and safety. Video games, we are just seeing the effects of long-term voiceover for video games now, and they are scary. It's permanent damage you're doing to your vocal cords. There are doctors everywhere telling voice actors to stop. Just stop. You're damaging yourself forever. Stop. So we need to be compensated if we're giving up our entire, we're if you work in cartoons and video games and you seem in your video game heavy like I am, very video game heavy, that means every time I do a video game, my voice is changing permanently and it can affect my cartoon career forever.
Yeah, definitely. And I'm so happy you brought up how non-union rates are going down. And I'm not sure if you want to make a comment on it because I've been
Because the non-union universe is looking to get, they they know that there's a lot of people out there, and the beautiful thing about it is I believe you get what you pay for. I think the work speaks for itself. I've seen some of the non-union stuff that's gone up lately, and you can hear the difference in quality between non-union and union. You can. I mean, it's a huge difference, and you get what you pay for. And the only people, the actors might think that they're doing themselves a favor by taking something that's actually, they probably don't even know that the rate's been cut to even less than the regular rate that was established by people who had been doing it for a long period of time, and now it's like a really, really low rate that people are just walking away from, except for the people who are new, who don't know any better. And the thing is, if you're accepting that super duper low rate, that company is never going to pay you more, because in their heads you're always going to be the cheap talent. You're always going to be the one that's going to do it for this tiny amount, and you'll get a lot of work for that tiny amount, but you won't get the respect of your peers, who have fought to, I mean, there's a ton of people in this town who started non-union and then went union, who fought to raise the non-union rates. All of those people are now union, and they can just see on the other side of the looking glass all of the rates that they spent years bringing up have now plummeted to a quarter of the amount. And that's heartbreaking for the people who put in all that time and effort. So it's going to be up to this new generation to do that for themselves, because they were the ones that ended up, lowering the rates on themselves in the first place. So it'll be up to them to have to rebuild everything from scratch, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's interesting too because I've been taking voice classes, various teachers throughout the past like 2-3 years, and almost all of them will reference a pay to play site. Like, you want to start somewhere, go to a pay to play site, but that seems to be a, more than half the problem.
Well, no, not really. I mean, the quality work doesn't go to pay to play. I mean, pay to play is a fantastic place to get started. You're going to cut your teeth. You're going to get good at being business person, because you're going to get people who take advantage of you, and you're going to learn very quickly that you're worth more than what's happening on those sites. And some of the pay to play sites are taking a huge cut out of, they have the client paying what they think is an actor's rate, then they're taking a cut off of that and paying the actor half that. Like, that happens on many pay to play sites. So it is what it is. I mean, you want to get into voiceover, you're going to do whatever you need to do. But what I'm suggesting is that you learn what the professionals earn, what the professionals do, so that you know where you're heading. You know when it's time. You'll feel it. You'll feel it in your gut, because when you're doing a job and you feel resentful and you feel like you're being taken advantage of, then it's time for you to do something. Usually ask for more money, or at least respect yourself enough and your talent enough to know that you're worth more, and do something about it. Do something about it. And if more actors took more, respected themselves and their craft more, I think the rate would be higher. I saw this great, I think it was a cartoon. No, it was in that Amadeus, that Mozart TV show on Amazon.
Oh.
And they were negotiating, the union was negotiating with the musicians, and the head negotiator dude was like, our job isn't to make them accept less. Our job is to make them think that they're already being paid too much. Our job is to convince them that they're already being paid too much. And that's how we are approached by producers. They purposely put out what we make so that we get bombarded by people telling us that we make too much when they don't know the day-to-day bills and the cost of living and all of those things. And I think that's a genius way of negotiating, by making the actors think that you're, and I worked, when I first got to this town, I was working some non-union jobs, and I remember producers saying, oh, well, you're already getting paid such and such, but it still wasn't even scale. So I was like, you are full of baloney. You are full of baloney thinking that but I saw them do it. They were trying to tell me that I already made too much when I knew I wasn't even making a quarter of what a normal professional actor made. So the non-union is a great way to chip at your self-confidence, to chip away at feeling like a worthy actor, to chip away feeling like you provide quality work. And that's too bad, because there's some brilliant non-union projects out there and brilliant non-union talent out there that are hopefully will be going union. But until they do, and then until they feel worthy, it's this terrible quagmire they're stuck in. And I feel the pain, brothers. I feel the pain.
Well, out of sheer curiosity, as someone who takes way too much interest in this subject, do you think maybe there needs to be more of a dialogue between non-union and union actors?
I don't think that's going to happen. Most cases, I am not one. I have no judgment on anybody. I feel like, because I've walked the walk on both sides of the fence, and I feel like you got to do what you need to do to pay your rent, support your kids, support. You don't know what somebody's personal situation is.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't like to prejudge that. But in the most case, union actors feel that the reason why our negotiations in the union go so poorly are because there are non-union actors taking ridiculously low wages. And so the union negotiations, the producers use that as fodder. They say, well, we can get anybody to do this. We can get them to do it for a quarter of what you do it for. And so the union actors usually, the reason we strike is to remind the producers why there's union talent. Be like, okay, you think you can use nothing but non-union talent? Go for it. Let's see. Because in most cases, and I've been there, a lot of non-union talent do not have the chops to do what union talent does every day. They can't hold their voice, they can't hold the character, or if they have a character, they can't do all of the different levels of emotion and acting that is required from that character. They can only do one or two areas because they've never been challenged that far before. There's a lot of different levels to it. And if you've ever, any non-union talent who stood next to a union talent and performed, they know what I'm talking about.
Fair enough. No, as I said, I think this is super enlightening, and I love talking about this sort of subject. So we could talk for it forever, but I know that the fans might not want that.
I know, and you can edit all of this out. This might be just between you and I, as far as I'm concerned.
I don't mind keeping it in. I think it's good advice for young voice actors. But if you think a little bit more reality to it. But if you're uncomfortable with it, we can totally take it out.
I'm not uncomfortable with it because I think I'm pretty direct. And it's also the only other thing I wanted to say about that is, what did I want to say? There was something. It's little basics. If you're starting out in non-union and you want to get into union, which should be everybody's goal, is that it's not cool to out what's non-union and what's union. It's just not cool. It's just not done. There are people who are really trying to get out of their non-union careers and get into union. And by outing anything, whether it's union or not, what you're doing is drawing attention to the individuals in that particular project who may be trying to get their career to the next level. So it's very, very a strict confidence that's kept within that universe. And it's, if you're a union actor doing non-union, it's super frowned upon, and they get really, really, you can get fined a lot of money. So we just, everything is kept really close to the chest. You know, if you work in some place like Texas where it's a right to work state, it's different. You can work both union and non-union, but California is not like that. So you need to know the rules. You need to know what's going on. You need to know that union actors have a really hard time with non-union actors. And even though a lot of non-union actors have made it into the union world, you'll be faced with a lot of people who disapprove of you because to them, you didn't do it the right way. Although I feel like because everything has blown up in the last 7 years, how maybe back in the day when it was easier to go in through the union and work nothing but union jobs in voiceover, it seems to be like the only way to get in is to start non-union and then flip union as soon as you possibly can. But it's such a hard thing to say, and some people still manage to just get into the union right away and book nothing but union for the rest of their careers, and that to me is a fluke and fantastic and a blessing for the individuals that have done it. And it's not necessarily the truth for others. So I am very open-minded to, you know, people starting out not union and then going union. But I do feel like that should ultimately be the goal. It's always about supporting the union. And I also am a firm believer, if you work non-union and the union strikes, support the union. They're fighting for you. You know, like a lot of these people in the union, they're giving up huge, much bigger paychecks than you are as a non-union person by striking. And they're doing it so that the future voice actors will have a decent wage, you know, because eventually the union actors will, you know, get to their age that they retire and they'll have a pension because the union there was a pension for them. But now that where things are with the new talent, there may not be any of those things for the new talent based on the way things seem to be going. So you need to support the union if they strike. If you're working non-union video games and the union strikes video games, strike video games with them in solidarity. Shake up the non-union universe and let them know that you stand in solidarity with decent wages and safety in the workplace, because whatever happens in the union will trickle down to the non-union universe if the non-union universe supports the union. And if you are a voice actor, you want to be, you know, able to eventually buy a house of your own. The only way you're going to do that is by working union wages on a regular basis and stay away from the lower paying stuff. So that's just my 2 cents. Of course, I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of hate on both sides of the camp for everything that I've said, because nobody ever talks about this stuff. Not ever. I've never heard anybody talk about it. And I'm willing to just talk about it on both sides of the camp, of just looking at both sides, because I've seen both sides. And everybody's right and everybody's wrong. That's the way I look at it. There's truth to everything, and every individual situation is different. And I am pro-union, so there's that. And I am pro-paying your bills, so there's that. So you guys got to do what you got to do. Follow your heart. Be truthful and honest with yourself. But pay attention to what's going on. And what is it that you want out of this as a career, if you plan on doing this as a career, you know?
No, I think it's sound advice. And as somebody who was born and raised in Las Vegas, and my mom owned a bar and is a bartender to this day. She's been a bartender for 40 years. There's a bartenders union too, like for all of that. So I understand from that perspective how important those things are. If you get hurt, if you have to write up an incident, if somebody is drunk and does something, which probably doesn't happen as much in voiceover as does a bar, but those sort of things are there for a reason, and they're supposed to protect the individual. So yeah. I have to say, from my point of view, it's so nice to hear about this stuff, because from somebody that sometimes is just watching from the sidelines, it's kind of like, I know people are screaming about it here and people are screaming about it here, and I don't know why I should support either one. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody giving an overarching explanation as to why. And I think that's
Yeah, that makes sense. And you know, it's not to say that there aren't flaws on both sides as well, but I have to go for the ideal. I have to go for, if we don't stick together and fight together as artists, we will be taken advantage of, and that's just the bottom line.
yeah, no, it's true. And I want to have the more you know star right here. Just
Yeah,
imagine
right?
it
Yeah, yeah.
with a little sound effect.
Yeah.
But
But listen to me. Don't take my word for it. Don't believe me just because I'm saying it out loud. Do your homework, do your research, talk to others, talk to union members, talk to non-union members, figure it out for yourself, but at least inform yourself. That's the very least you can do for yourself as a professional.
well, it's just like it's akin to politics, if you will.
It is.
You're not going to vote for somebody you don't know anything about. You want to educate yourself to make sure you're not voting for somebody that wants to kill kittens.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, I agree.
But either way, for the fans out there, I'm sure a lot of this conversation was very exciting for them. To keep up to date though with your thoughts and opinions and your headspace, where can they do that?
Yeah, I'm always on Twitter, like at Erin Fitzgerald. That is my main Twitter. I have a Tumblr. I have a Facebook fan page. I have a Twitter that follows my Tumblr and Facebook fan page, which is at Erin Fitz Badass. I have Instagram, but my website is Erin Fitz Badass or erinfitzvo.com. And that has a list of that's the most accurate list of credits that's out there, since my Wikipedia got deleted from a huge battle between fans and Wikipedia editors. Apparently that happened this week, and I went to it yesterday, and it's like one tiny paragraph, but it's really succinct. So I like that. That was fun. And IMDb.
Now I'm afraid to like refresh your Wikipedia page because I haven't.
Well, I think but all my credits are on my website anyway, so
Okay.
it doesn't matter to me whether or not the Wikipedia is, I don't depend on Wikipedia for my credit list. So the IMDb is a little all over the place and sometimes behind. But of course, because who's editing? The only thing that's accurate is the one that I edit myself, and that is my website, because I know everything that I'm in. Although I haven't put Bravely 2 on there yet because it's just released in Europe. But yeah, other than that, everything is on there pretty much. So website, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, blah, 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 blah. I think that's everything. I think, yeah, and I'm on social media all the time. So if you have a question or if you want to reach out, you can through that. I'm also in the finishing up writing a book, an ebook, not a paper book, but an ebook called 10 Things Any Voice Actor Will Tell You If They Are Me. Hopefully I'll have that finished by the end of March. And I do go into the non-union union stuff in the book a little bit as well, kind of illustrating that, just basically what I told you. So there you go. You don't need to read that chapter now.
Well, I want to read it anyway because it sounds interesting.
Good. Okay. Recap of this talk, and you're like, oh, I don't have time to listen. That'll be the gist of it right there.
Awesome. Well, you did mention Bravely Default too. So that's one of your latest roles. Do you have anything else that you want to promote to the fans that you're a part of?
Is it terrible that I can't remember off of the top of my head right now? I can't think of anything specifically, but because I can't remember what I'm allowed to talk about.
Yeah, those NDA ninjas. I understand.
I feel like I think I'm in a cone of silence until September for a lot of stuff. So
oh my gosh, that's so long.
It's happened when you record certain things at a certain time. I can't, but you never know. I feel like something else just came out. I can't remember. So I always depend on fans to let me know what just came out with me in it, because they're the ones that tweet at me. I'm like, oh, is that out now? Can I talk about it? Good to know. That's pretty much the gist of it for me.
Fair enough. Well, for the fans out there, they've obviously enjoyed this conversation. I'm sure the live chat is probably having a field day. But would you like to, leave them with any words of wisdom, dating advice, predictions for the end of the world?
The only wisdom I have is get your own experiences. Don't listen to anybody else, even me. Like, don't listen to anybody else about what is you want to do with your life. Get your own experiences and follow your own path, whatever that means to you. Because what I've experienced and what I believe and what I know is specific to me and my experience. So, and respect other people's experiences and their path and how they choose to do it. How about we don't argue about somebody else's perspective and choices? How about we just go, wow, man, you're doing it in a different way. Good for you for doing it at all, because people could be just sitting on the couch not doing anything. So well played, and high five to anybody who is taking action towards their dreams in whatever way it looks like, even if it's completely different from what other people seem to be posting. Just be you, do you, get that experience. You'll learn as you go. We all do.
That's such a powerful message. And for any of the listeners out there that missed any of this interview, don't fret. You can find it on the website within the next few days, so keep your eyes peeled to 918thefan.com and your ears tuned to 91.8 The Fan, where we play everything you want and nothing you don't.